Okay, we're going to continue right now and go over some of the principles that we can incorporate into our classroom for teaching respect. People often ask me, about how we can teach kids to be respectful. Well, I think it really starts with us as teachers. And there's really not one strategy, but it's more of a philosophy that we have to have, and a mindset and an attitude. And through our efforts, we will become role models for kids and help them understand what it looks like when someone is respectful toward another person. And we have 15 principles here, and I'm going to go over each one of them with you. And I've managed to reduce it to 2 slides. And hopefully, when we're done, you'll have a real good idea about how to incorporate these principles into your classroom and help kids gain a better understanding of what this whole thing looks like. And the first one we have is keep promises. Promises need to be made very sparingly. We have to evaluate our schedule, and we have to be completely sure that if we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. I can't tell you how many times I said I was going to meet a kid after school only to discover that we had a faculty meeting or I completely forgot it. And if we're going to tell kids that we're going to do something, and that could mean as simple as, can I get a drink of water? And you say to them, as soon as you finish these problems or in 5 minutes, that kid expects to get a drink of water in 5 minutes. And we also have to be aware that maybe to us means no, and maybe to a kid means yes. See, we often use the word maybe. Can we go outside, when we're done with these problems? Maybe. To them, that means yes. To us, it may mean no. We're just trying to avoid the confrontation at the time, or to avoid any uprising in the classroom at the time, when in reality, you know what the answer was, and it was no. I was working in a middle school many years ago, and working with a group of emotionally disturbed boys mostly, and one of the boys was on a Pop Warner football team, and he said to me, "Mr. Burns, can you come to one of my games?" And I said, "Well, when is it?" He says, "Well, I got a game today." And I says, "You know what?" I says, "I'll go." I drove halfway home, only on the way home to remember that he wanted me to go to the game, and then in my head I'm thinking, he won't miss me. But then I thought I better go. And I went to the game, and I got there at halftime, and this kid was standing by the fence waiting for me to get there. So if you say something, make sure that you evaluate every variable that may be in your way, so that you don't make a promise that you don't keep. And I know it's unintentional, but we can't make promises that we can't keep, and we have to evaluate every factor in our life before we say yes to something. Next one, be sincere and honest. And by this I mean be sincere about a kid's ability. Kids today can feel good about themselves for no apparent reason. We tell them they're doing well, when in reality they're not doing too good. "How did I do on that test, Mr. Burns?" "Well, we'll take another look at it," or you could take it over. Well, in reality, you failed the test. And kids need to be aware of where they stand scholastically and behaviorally in our classroom. We can't give them a false sense of their abilities, because if we do, someone will tell them down the road, and kids will begin to wonder why we didn't tell them, and we didn't make them aware, and we didn't push them. We have to have clear expectations for behavior and for a student's scholastic ability. Just say hello to everybody. I can't tell you how many times I walked down a hallway and didn't even say hello to one of my own colleagues. Say hello to parents that are sitting in the office. And there's a good reason for it, because you want to begin to form a relationship with that parent, because you don't know when you're going to have their kid in your class. It's absolutely a very simple thing to do, and all you have to do is say hello, good morning, how are you, good to see you. Anything at all that makes a child, and at times an adult, aware of the fact that you recognize them. Call by name. From the time I was in the 6th grade until the time I graduated from high school, my name was Bo, B-O. And my parents called me that, my friends called me that, coaches, teachers, just about everybody in the town that I lived in called me by that name, and in reality I couldn't stand it. And kids are called by a variety of nicknames. We don't have to call them by that nickname. We're not even sure if they like it. And calling a kid by a nickname does nothing more than level the ground and put us on the same plane as one of their friends. And if you have any question about this, just ask yourself what Beaver Cleaver's teacher called him in Leave It to Beaver. Does anybody know what Beaver's name really was? It was Theodore, and that's what she called him. And that's what we have to do with our students. Next one, understand affection. We've gotten to the point where a slap on the back or a high five is something that we're avoiding. We have to understand that we are not looking to be affectionate. We are looking to show some form of recognition with the pat on the back or the high five. My father owned a bar, and he used to come downstairs to go to work, and he might have 15 people at the bar, and he used to pat every one of them on the back. I started to do that when I was working as an administrator, and I used to walk through the cafeteria. We all know what we're trying to do. We all know what inappropriate affection looks like. A high five or a tap on the shoulder is okay. We have to understand what it looks like. Use the 2x10. This is something I got from Dr. Alan Mendler of Discipline with Dignity. You know, it's real easy to have conversations with kids that we really like. And in reality, there are kids that we don't like. We just won't admit that. And the line, I like you but don't like your behavior, is a little bit ridiculous in my eyes, only because you are your behavior. You own your behavior. And certain behaviors we don't like, and we associate them with some of our students. But we have to form relationships with those kids. So, here's what we do. We take 2 minutes out of our day and we have conversations with kids that we have a difficult time forming a relationship with, and who we know respect just isn't present. And after about the 8th day, you're going to notice that the conversation is going to be about 50-50. And they're going to look to you to have that conversation. And once we start to have those conversations with kids and build the relationship with those kids, and we start to develop greater respect between myself and the kid, or yourself and the kid, what will happen is it will become far easier to discipline them, because kids will always listen to adults that they respect. Part of the problem with discipline in some families is kids don't respect their parents, so it doesn't matter what the parent does to them, they don't care, because if respect isn't present, the discipline doesn't take. So we have to understand that the closer we get to kids, the greater the relationship, the greater the respect will be, the easier it will be to discipline kids. Little courtesies. Holding a door open. Again, saying good morning. Recognizing small achievements, which ties into the next principle, which is recognizing efforts. And sometimes I think we should recognize and grade efforts, because any effort, no matter how big or how small, should be rewarded. And I think this is important. I think it's very important for us to understand it. Kids, we don't know how much effort a kid puts in when he ends up getting a 73 on a test. He may have studied all night. He may not have understood the material. But if we realize his effort and we recognize the effort, what will happen is, we will then make him aware that we are now aware of how hard he is actually working, or actually worked to get the grade that he got. Next slide. Be fair and consistent when disciplining, and jump down to the next one as well. Balance rules and regulations with compassion and understanding. If you don't have that balance, by the way, we talk too much when we discipline. When you look at this, rules and regulations and compassion and understanding, the rules have to be enforced first with an appropriate consequence, and then, we can show the compassion and understanding. Too often we'll bring a kid out into a hall and we'll say to him, "What's wrong today? Are you having a bad day? What's going on at home? Do you need to talk to me about something?" And the whole time, all we're trying to do is soften the kid up so we can impose the consequence. And then when we impose it, the kid could go ballistic, and we have no place else to go because we've already talked to him for about 10 minutes and we got nowhere. So the bottom line is we have to have a balance. Rules first, compassion second. And if we make a mistake, apologize when necessary. We all make mistakes. We have to be aware that we're going to make them. And when we make a mistake, or we discipline a kid, or maybe we discipline the wrong kid, we have to admit that we're human and apologize. Try to stay objective. And by this I mean, what we want to do is not bring up 5 other things that a kid did when we're disciplining him for something that he did in the present. We don't want to bring up the past. We want to make sure that we stick with what went on. We want to stick to the topic. And we don't want to begin to belittle the kid or pick on the kid because of certain behaviors that he exhibited. Next one, don't fuel power struggles. Kids will say stuff to us and they're basically throwing out a hunk of rope hoping that we grab it. And if we do, we're going to have a power struggle with the kid in the classroom. Power struggles occur when we take the bait. Kids are going to say things to us all the time to try and disrupt the learning process. What we have to do is practice a technique called fogging. Fogging is where you make the kid aware that what he has said to you is of little or no consequence. It doesn't matter. This class sucks. Yes, it does suck. But we have to We have to complete the curriculum, so we're going to have to pay attention and get through with it. There are many things that I have to do that I don't like, but I still have to do them. And yes, they might suck, but in reality, we have to get through with the work. Maintain your dignity and the dignity of your students if a power struggle does occur. Don't place yourself on the battlefield if you can't get off gracefully. So you have to maintain your dignity. You have to know how far you're going to go with the struggle, and if you sense that you are going to potentially lose a battle, don't get on the battlefield. The last one, and it goes back up to our rules and regulations and compassion and understanding. You've got to be honest with yourself and admit it if you're having trouble liking a student. You have to be honest, because if you don't, it will leak out through your attitude, toward the look in your eye, toward how you say things to them or her, and what will happen is they will know that you don't like them, and they will then slowly begin to lose respect for you. All of this is important when it comes down to creating a climate in your classroom that is safe, that is respectful, and is responsible. We have to make sure that we utilize these principles and work with our students and teach them certain things that they need to know so that they can use these principles with their friends and as they grow older in other relationships in their life.